Happy Friday the 13th! And welcome back to the channel. It's Alex from Sandro Says here, and I wanted to celebrate one of my favorite holidays. A holiday that happens every year, although we don't really know what month it's going to happen on, if it does happen at all. Friday the 13th. I'm all decked out in my favorite Jason Voorhees gear, celebrating, and I wanted to take you through my ranking of the Friday the 13th movies. Please leave a like on the video, leave a subscription, leave a comment of what you think the ranking is. Now, of course, a ranking is something that changes every year or every time I watch these kind of. This is not set in stone. I find myself watching the Friday the 13th movies every summer. I find as a horror movie franchise, they are best viewed in the summer, not in the Halloween time when I have Halloween to watch and other, straight up horror movies. But either way, Friday the 13th is one of my favorite franchises. Even when I was a kid, I used to dress as Jason for Halloween long before I even knew what he was. Friday the 13th also is a very 80s thing. It's just they put out 8 movies in 10 years. That's crazy. And then when you look at their overall horror standing, they've put out 12 movies overall, which the only franchise that's done more is Halloween. So that's pretty wild. All right, let's get into it. Now, something I should say as a caveat here. If I was to do a tier ranking of all these movies, none of them would be below C tier. In fact, only my bottom choice, number 12, is going to be C tier. The rest are B and above. So I'm going to mention what tier I would put them in, but this is a straight ranking just because I wanted to have definitive lining of where everything was. So, starting out, number 12, Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason, I kind of, I have love for all of these movies. But the problem with Freddy vs. Jason is it ruins the lore of Jason Voorhees. It messes entirely with who he is and what he is about. Since the beginning, Jason has been someone that lives around a lake and or in the lake and or travels in the lake under the water. So to change his lore in this movie to make him vulnerable to water, because you wanted to make it like a video game where like Freddy's vulnerable to fire and Jason's vulnerable to water. It's like, did you watch the movies? So other than that, because it's a non-canon, even though all these movies are kind of non-canon, this one's just out in the middle of nowhere. And it involves Freddy. Freddy kind of dominates the movie. Jason is more of like a vessel of Freddy's. And so that there's parts against it. What I will say, there are some standout scenes. I love the scene in the cornfield where Jason goes on a massacre, and then the battle that they have at the construction site at the end, especially with the rebar and stuff, that's top notch. So that was number 12. Coming in at number 11, we have another movie that's not really Jason. We have Part 5, The New Beginning. So in Part 5, if you don't know by now, spoilers for all these movies, but Jason is not in the movie at all. Jason, I think maybe he's featured in the beginning in a dream sequence with Tommy Jarvis. Little Tommy Jarvis is still there for some reason, but then he immediately ages up to a teenager, and the rest of the movie is just all these crazy redneck situations with a really dirty cast. There's random murders that aren't even involving Jason. Like there's some guy that just butchers someone at the beginning of the movie for basically he offers him a candy bar and then he kills him. And then Jason is that guy's dad, the guy who got killed's dad, and it's a paramedic. And he almost gives a couple signs early in the movie that he's Jason. But I guess people watching it the first time were like, well, maybe Jason's back from the dead for some reason. He's not. It's just a guy wearing a Jason mask. So a Jason mask under a Jason mask. So yeah, number 5 has some cool memories, has some cool moments, especially with, I love the guy singing in the outhouse, things like that. Reggie the Reckless is great, but overall, not that great of a movie. Coming in at number 10, we have Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason Takes Manhattan is a movie that I saw, probably one of the first Friday the 13th I saw. However, I saw it dubbed in Italian. So I was very confused on what the hell was going on. I had no idea this was even supposed to be Jason Takes Manhattan, because if you haven't seen this movie, most of it takes place on a boat on the way to Manhattan. Apparently Crystal Lake is somehow connected to the Atlantic, Ocean, and it connected to Manhattan. I don't know. Either way, the movie is all right. It has a lot of bland kills. A lot of the kills are kind of off-screen or cut really quick. I believe John Carl Buechler did the effects for this, but a lot of it got cut because this was a time the MPAA was really being strict on these movies. This was the 8th in the franchise. So, and then they finally get to Manhattan in the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie. They show Times Square, and then the rest of it is just sound stages or Vancouver. and then Jason gets melted at the end and turns into a kid. The whole thing is just I can't like Jason Takes Manhattan that much. As I said, okay, so let me go back for a second. In the C tier would be Freddy versus Jason, and then everything so far since then has been B tier. So the A New Beginning and Jason Takes Manhattan are B tier to me. Continuing the B tier, we also have number 9, Part 7, The New Blood. I know some people love Part 7. They like the crazy look Jason has with the exposed spine and the fact that he's facing off against a version of Carrie where it's almost like an 11 from Stranger Things, this woman with, telekinetic powers. But I just don't get that plussed by the whole movie. It feels like a rehash of movies that we've already seen with just this weird telekinetic thing added in. That's kind of added in out of left field. Up to this point, nothing has been too supernatural in this series, so this is the part that things really start to get wild. I know Jason's come back from the dead and stuff, but that's one person. He's like an undead entity. For some other random person to unlock telekinetic powers, it's not great. And then her dad ends up being the one that takes Jason down at the end. Her dad that she killed at the beginning, he's like a lake monster now, and he's covered in mud. Yeah, sorry, I don't love this movie. Coming in at number 8, a movie I do love, Jason X. Now, this is the last movie in my B tier, but Jason X is really close to an A tier. There's something just so charming about this movie. You get multiple versions of Jason. You get Jason in current times, then you get him in the future, then you also get him with a nanite rebuilt body. And that's probably one of the scariest versions of Jason when he has the nanites. It does look a little crazy, like superhero-esque, but you get the feeling that, oh crap, this Jason's for real. They put him in a couple, hologram scenes where he kills people in a forest again, so that, it gives you that even though you're on a spaceship. I really enjoy the kind of made-for-TV aspect of the cast. The cast all seems to be this Canadian, local troupe almost. They all have semi-Canadian accents and stuff. It's a fun movie. Some of the kills here are great. The woman getting her face smashed in the liquid nitrogen is classic. There's just a lot of fun here. So it's not a great movie, but there's a lot of fun to be had with it. So that's why I put it in my B tier. All right, now moving on to the A tier. We come in at number 7, Part 3, 3D. I don't know if Part 3 had another subtitle. I don't think it did. Anyway, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D is a wild movie because it was during this 3D craze where everything had to have a 3D sequel. And of course, the third movie usually lined up to be the 3D sequel. We get some memorable cast members, though. We get Shelley, who ends up being one of the most famous and most loved characters in the whole series. This nerd who, just wants to find love and stuff, but he doesn't know how to talk to women, and he's a big horror freak and all this stuff. You have some other people, but a lot of the movie is focused on them poking at the camera and doing silly things to make it like 3D, so that takes away from it. However, the Jason in this is pretty badass. Not only is this where he first gets his iconic hockey mask, a lot of people forget that. Jason doesn't get his hockey mask until the third movie. He actually steals it from Shelley after he kills him, or before he kills him. I don't know the sequence of events there. Shelley's wearing it first, then we see Jason with it, and then we see Shelley dying, so it's hard to tell. Either way, pretty awesome movie, though. It's a very scary Jason. He does a lot of awesome kills. He shoots someone with an arrow from across the lake, basically. It's like you can see that this Jason he's very methodical in his kills, but it's a pretty awesome event. I like this movie to go back to, and I really enjoyed the theme, the kind of like disco version they take on the theme here. I don't think I can play it during the video because you get struck on YouTube for playing like 2 seconds of a song, but you can look it up. It's Harry Manfredini's, Friday the 13th Part 3 theme song. So, okay. Well, that brings us to number 6, which is also in our A tier. I might get some hate for this. Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. That is number 6 here. It's an epic feel of a movie. It really feels like a blockbuster for some reason. They did great with the music, the cinematography. After 5, where you didn't even have Jason, you bring him back at the beginning with this amazing lightning bolt resurrection similar to Frankenstein. They cast a great person to be Tommy Jarvis, And just you could follow someone now through the series, which usually you have a final girl, which you do have a final girl in this also, but the stakes are raised. You also have kids at the camp for the first time. Usually it's just the counselors preparing. So you have the kids at the camp, you have a sheriff, you have the sheriff's assistant, you have the girl that's interested in Tommy. This movie is really fleshed out with a lot of characters for you to like and root for or root against. And then this Jason is alright. He has some great kills, but again, a lot of them are kind of muted from the MPAA. And the interesting thing here with Jason is, in some scenes he looks kind of pudgy, in some he doesn't, because they used two different actors for Jason. And I always felt he looked too much like a fisherman here. I know there's an emphasis on him with the spike and or the big pole that he uses to kill people with and stuff, but he has a lot of like little pockets and things like that. It doesn't look right to me. It almost looks like he's too done up like an actual outdoorsman, or not a man of the outdoors. Like, this is some guy that went to Bass Pro Shops before he went to kill the kids. So I don't like that as much, but still a pretty awesome movie, and I think it's a high point in the franchise. So coming in at number 5, Jason Goes to Hell. Already, I know people are freaking out. How did you put this high? I have a soft spot for Jason Goes to Hell. I really find this movie pretty creepy and pretty awesome. At this point in the series, you're 9 movies in. You effectively killed the franchise with Jason Goes to Manhattan. Jason Takes Manhattan. So putting a new twist on it isn't so bad. To effectively kill the body of Jason at the beginning and then make it where Jason can, this essence of the evil, can overtake other people. I know a lot of people are like, well, we need the mask. We need the person in the mask killing. This movie could be pretty scary otherwise. It's got a lot of darkness to it. It's got a lot of creepy scenes. There's a lot of phenomenal deaths and great effects for these deaths in the scenes. You have a great protagonist and his, girlfriend. There's a tie back to the original Voorhees lore. There's some hard to watch scenes. The scene where the alien Voorhees thing crawls into the woman. That's, not for me. But overall, this movie has a really creepy feel to it. Oh, and I have to mention Creighton Duke, one of the best characters in the series. Like, you want to talk about an insane movie. Like, this dude, whoa, he's out there. So, overall, I actually really like Jason Goes to Hell. I think it's worth a rewatch for some people. My only probable the thing I probably hate about this movie the most is the sound. A lot of times the sound is this really awkward, like, synthesizer, jumpy music. It almost sounds like a TV movie. So that hurts. So, anyway, moving into our top 4. Number 4, closing at the A tier, we have the original Friday the 13th. Now, this one started it all from 1980, but the reasons I have it so low on the list, Jason's not the killer, which I know in the last movie I kind of had as a plus point, but in this movie, you don't know who the killer is, and the reveal is completely unrewarding, because you're introduced to Mrs. Voorhees at the end for like 3 seconds, and then she's the killer. There's no surprise of who it is. Earlier, when she kills someone, you see it from her point of view, and the guy walks up to her and says, "Hey, how are you?" But he doesn't say her name. It's just, I don't love that reveal. Beyond that, though, great movie. You have a young Kevin Bacon, you have a great small cast, and it's a super creepy setting. It's this summer camp that they're restarting after the murders 20 years before or whatever, and it's basically isolated except for these few people, and they're all teenagers except for the one adult who leaves, and then he gets murdered anyway. So you can see why Mrs. Voorhees would go nuts and be taking, not that's legit, but at least there's a reason for her doing it. It's a great movie, and I really like some of the gritty aspect of it, because this is the first. It was a low-budget movie, and because it's gritty, it has that realistic feel. And probably one of the best kills in the series, with Kevin Bacon getting the arrow through him while he's laying down. That's just top-notch. So, all right. Now we're going to move into my S tier with the top 3, and I'd like to remind you, please leave a like on the video as we get in to the top 3 of my ranking with the Friday the 13th movies. Number 3, we have Part 2, The Second Night, or The Night After, whatever. Part 2 is the first sequel, or the first movie that actually features Jason as a killer. Doesn't have the mask yet, but he is this crazy guy in overalls just stalking the camp. Apparently, there's a camp on the other side of the lake now, So it's not the exact same campground, but it's a similar one. I don't know how this all works. The lake, it might as well be one of the Great Lakes with how big they make it seem at times. But there's another camp there, and Jason's like, hey, I don't like that these people are encroaching on my land. I'm going to kill them. So it's a huge cast of characters. A lot of them leave to go to a bar for part of the movie, so that explains why Jason doesn't have like a 40-person kill count. But the ones that stay behind, you have some very memorable antagonists. You have not antagonists, but you have people messing with the girl. You have guys flirting with the girls. You have the girl flirting with the guy in the wheelchair. You have a great another iconic kill is the guy in the wheelchair getting the knife and then going down the stairs. You have the great battle at the end with Jenny, and Jenny's probably the best final girl in the series. And you have Jason just being relentless at the end. So I think that overall, 2 has a very similar feel to 1. It feels very connected to it, but because they were able to change things and actually bring Jason in as the killer, it does have enough of a difference. And then there's the creepy shack at the end with Jason's mother's head. It's a pair to the first movie. So I think that, you can't go wrong with any of these movies, but you really can't go wrong with part 2. All right, my top 2. We have the remake from 2009. I know people are already unsubscribing, they're hitting dislike on the video, but hear me out. The remake from 2009 is probably one of the best and scariest movies in the franchise. Not only does it combine essentially the first 3 or 4 movies into one, where you have, you see the backstory of the mother, you see Jason seeing his mother get killed, you see Jason growing up, there's a lost sister and then someone coming to find the sister, which is similar to part 4. Plus you have a Jason that is extremely realistic and scary. He's a man that lives in these woods, and he's very territorial, and if you come in his territory, he's going to mess with you. But he uses lights, he slams things, he has bear traps, and just is brutal. The beginning of this movie where he's roasting the person over the fire, and then the guy gets in the bear trap, and you see Jason with the sack over his head. It's like, oh my god! And he comes over and hits the guy with the machete. It's like you feel like you feel like this Jason as a human could have split that guy in half, and the movie just progresses from there. Once he gets the mask, it's badass. All the scenes have a realistic feel to them, and I love that. And it's a scary Jason. There's a lot of good points where you don't know where he is, and he just pops out and rips someone apart. So the remake from 2009 is the most recent movie we have in the series. Can't believe it's been 17 years now. But probably one of my favorites in the series. I almost put it at number 1, but number 1 will be Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter. The Final Chapter is the original badass finale to this, obviously. It's only Part 4. It's from 1984. It's like 40 plus years ago, and they made a ton of movies since then. But Part 4, it has possibly the best looking Jason. It has one of the scariest Jasons, his kills, the way he stalks the people in the house. You have a notable cast of characters. Not only do you have the family, which has the Jarvis family, so you have Tommy Jarvis, his sister, the mom, their dog, but next door you have the kids, so you have a very iconic location with 2 houses across from each other. Crispin Glover is in the cast. All the teens are believable. The Doublemint twins are there, so there's a lot going on, and in the back there's a guy searching for his sister that was taken in part 2. He becomes friends with Tommy and Tommy's sister. There's a lot going on here, and it's all for good. I think the kills, like I said, the kill in the shower where he just breaks the guy's head is amazing. Where he throws the person out of the window is amazing. I just can't say enough about this movie, and I personally think this is the best Jason actor that we've had. I know everyone loves Kane the Hodder, that's fine, but this was not only the best looking Jason, but I think it was Ted White. He just did a phenomenal job with this. Plus, you have the ending where Tommy Jarvis gets the upper hand on Jason. Now, I know it's like a little kid, but it's kind of cool that he thinks like Jason does as a kid, like what would mess with him, and then gets that shot off on his head with the machete. Like, it's gruesome when you see Jason's head sliding down the machete. So, again, you can't go wrong with any of these movies, but that is my listing. And all of them have merits. All of them have some interesting parts. they all have kills, and a lot of them have some humor to it. So either way, let me know what you think of my listing. Leave your own in the comments. Let's start a discussion. And please enjoy your Friday the 13th. Tune into some of these movies, and let's rewatch them. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.